please like erase these, like erase the comments that I said about you. It's like unbelievable how like things change. It's unbelievable how much of a hypocrite he is.
Real quick,
True.
I got a special guest here. What's up, Vaush?
Not much. Just, relaxing, have a good evening, checking my Discord DMs at opportune times. How's everyone doing?
Yeah, what's up?
Hey, how you doing, Vaush?
I'm doing great. I just, I haven't streamed in 2 days or done my emails, so I'm catching up with stuff and was looking over DMs. And I heard, not for the first time, that I'm racist. So I guess I was interested in getting to the bottom of that. Know oneself and all that,
Yeah.
Okay.
Just to let you guys know, I sent him a DM and asked him to comment. It's not like he's running around looking for people to say.
No, I figured. No, don't worry about it. It's cool. Even if he did, like, that's his job. It doesn't matter to me.
Yeah, sure.
Got those Google alerts on. You know how it is. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty well, actually. I'm just kind of chilling out, talking to JMMA. We were having a little bit of a coarse conversation beforehand, but it's going pretty well now.
Yeah,
what was the?
We hate each other in the comments.
What was the coarseness from?
Okay, I thought he was being rude because I thought he was misunderstanding, so I just got rude back. But we talked on call, and we were just like, "Oh, okay, no one's trying to be rude." So we've been having a pleasant conversation.
Nice. Well, I'm also not trying to be rude. I'm just here chilling. I didn't mean to barge down the door or anything like that. But 2 days without streaming has left my, I'm feeling old and withered. Thought I'd revitalize myself a little bit with a conversation.
Okay, yeah, no, that's fine. So, if you want, I can explain my position, and you and JMMA can just kind of like hash it out with me. But basically, my position is to be the most clear and concise as possible. I do think that you have a level of bias against Black people. I don't think you're Nick Fuentes. I don't think you're like even Jesse Lee Peterson against other Black people. I do think that you have an unconscious bias against Black people, though.
Gotcha. Well, if it's non-conscious, I guess I can't refute it outright. I wouldn't even know myself. Do you mind? What makes you think that?
Okay, so basically the things that we are going over, and then if you want to say that you didn't say something or whatever, anything that you might put into contention, we can just put off the table unless I have evidence. But so it's a couple of things. One of the things that I mentioned was A, calling Jesse Lee Peterson and Uncle Tom, B, calling oh my god. So that Black woman, I forget what her name is, but the one who's kind of like a bootleg Candace Owens. So saying that in the course of discussing her and her
well,
video,
are you you're not saying that just because she's a Black woman, are you?
No, totally not.
That's what I mean. That's the point.
Because she's Republican. But with her, for instance, she I don't know what she said exactly, but during that video, obviously you made the comment of Black women in America, they all talk the exact same way, the exact same fucking way. Like, that was another one. From what I've seen, maybe this is untrue. You can definitely clarify. But I've seen more of a willingness of you to say stuff like the tactical N-word. Granted, that was like a year ago. But I've seen more of a willingness to say stuff like that, or other like kind of like racist comments against Black people, versus say like transphobic comments. And that to me says there's like kind of an unconscious willingness to say stuff about Black people versus like say trans people, which I'm not mad about in the sense of like you should be mad at trans people, but it'd be cool if we didn't do either.
Yeah, ideally the less bigotry the better, probably.
Yeah. What was I going to say? Jesus Christ, I forgot. So I've been defending you for the past, how long have you been debating for? 22 minutes on, if you're racist or not, and I'm on defense on saying that you're not racist. I think you just make a lot of edgy comments.
That sounds like a losing position to take.
God damn, I'm nervous now. Okay, so my take was, because I do disagree that I do agree that you probably shouldn't call a Black person Uncle Tom because literally the word Uncle Tom is used for any Black person that's probably like trying to leave the hood and trying to make a better life for themselves, and they're a seller to their community for something like that. They're usually called an Uncle Tom, and that's like in that word. But in your context with Jesse Peterson, because the real definition of Uncle Tom is just you enabling white supremacy and white nationalist talking points. And my defense was, I think it's justified that you call them that, because that's really the definition of Uncle Tom.
Well, I can give my thoughts on this. I try to use the word token now. The thing that really bothers me isn't like, so I don't think that like your identity means you should or shouldn't believe anything. You know what I mean? Like for sometimes conservatives will say that I have white guilt, or that I'm like a self-hating white person, and that's essentially like the opposite of saying Uncle Tom. They're saying that you're a race traitor, essentially. To me, that's not really the heart of what I'm trying to get at. Though, if you were to do casting for like that type of person, Jesse Lee Peterson's about as close as you're going to get in the real world. The term that I'm really looking for, I guess, is token. A person who weaponizes their minority status to defend hegemonic or oppressive talking points. So Blair White, for example, would also fit under that. Now, I agree. The Uncle Tom thing, well, the underlying message that I'm trying to deliver is about the same, but Uncle Tom has a lot of unnecessary coding that I think is probably better to avoid if possible. But I think the underlying desire isn't to like impugn Black people's autonomy with what they can and can't say. It's only like the tokenization,
Yeah, because the word Uncle Tom is like so abused now. It could be used for anybody Black who's dating somebody white or anyone out of their race. It's like it's just used for anything, especially with like race hustlers like Tyreek and She. They'll just use it for anything. They used it with I think Ahrelevant, with Quarantine. And Joe Lewis talking to the Scrub King, call him Uncle Tom, also an Uncle Tom. It's just completely abused, and I do agree with him that you probably shouldn't have called him that. So yeah, I agree with him, but I think I think your stance on Uncle Tom, I think is justified.
Yeah, well, I don't want to just so as to avoid the potential of, I guess, double teaming or anything. STK, hit me with them. I'll give my perspective.
Yeah. So
STK, sorry, I said SKT.
No,
STK.
Yeah, it's okay. So I was gonna say with the Uncle Tom thing, for instance, for me, I think you're a sociology major. You're not like stupid. You're a leftist. So I take it that you understand, obviously, that's rooted in like slavery comparison, right? I think even when you use that, on some level, it's like rooted in slavery comparison on a social level. So I think you, with that knowledge, will make like comparisons like that, pretty much perfectly aware of that like comparability. And to me that says, okay, you're kind of willing to like use things that compare Black people to slaves on occasion in the past. So while you might not do that anymore, my question would just be why you don't do it anymore. And what I was saying before is I think that for you to adequately address a problem, most of the time you're going to need to recognize the problem. So I think if you say, oh well, that really isn't my intention, that might be true, but if you are like unconsciously racist, or you might have like kind of an underlying bias against Black people, but you're not willing to just say, yeah, I might actually have this underlying bias. I'm not like for sure, because obviously I don't have that conscious access, but it does kind of come off that way. I'm going to try and like monitor it. I'm going to try and police it. That's my bad. I think when you don't do that, you forgo the ability to actually overcome that underlying racism.
Yeah.
I was
Okay. Well, I've always been of the opinion. I think that everyone is everythingist to some varying extent, because a lot of these ideas and biases are socially ingrained. So I think that to an extent, we always internalize a little bit of this, like sexism, for example. The idea that women are naturally more homemaking, better at taking care of children, like that's their role. I think that to an extent, almost everyone feels this way, at least a little bit. It's about checking those biases and being conscious of them, because we're ingrained in that one. That one's ingrained in us like 24/7, every second of every day. With regards to Jesse Lee Peterson, look, I understand, and I understood where the language comes from. It's just the man's been given like cotton picking bags and then posed for social media, holding them up and been like, yeah, when I talked to him in person, he was, yeah. There's an old Insta post of him being given an
oh my God.
cotton picking bag, and he posed with it with a white guy, I think. And when I was talking with him, he said one time when I was talking too fast for him, "I'm slow and black. Give me a sec to keep up." So I just want to say, so you have to understand. Okay, I just need to say that while I understand the problematic history of the language, this guy, Jesse Lee Peterson, is doing everything in his power to prompt any possible analogizing he can make, because holy shit, this guy leans into that.
So Vaush, real quick, when you use that as an example, would you also say, like, if a black person jumps onto a panel late and they're like, "Sorry, I'm on black person time," or something like that, would you like say that also contributes to some sort of white supremacy, like you think it does when Jesse Lee Peterson does it?
No, I think that shit's funny. If they're didn't Obama make a joke about that once at one of the White House correspondents?
Yeah, he did, actually, yeah.
I think that's funny. So I mean, when you're making like fun of these tropes, or you're like referencing them in like a self-aware way, I think that's cool. Jesse Lee Peterson obviously doesn't do that, though. I mean, it's clearly like he's saying it for the front of it. I mean, the guy's pretty clearly a white supremacist. Anyway, I'm not like defending the particulars of the language. I'm only saying that the use of the term was inspired more by Jesse Lee Peterson's astounding willingness to play that act than it was, I think, by any like underlying desire to impugn black people based on their historical alignment with the institution of slavery.
Because
at least consciously, I mean, unconsciously, who the fuck knows?
Yeah, and I agree that on like a trivial level, obviously we probably all have some form of ism, right? Like I was saying earlier, though, like I think that, like, significantly speaking, I'm probably a little ableist. I make a lot of comments about people's mental health and stuff. I think I speculate a little too much, stuff like that. And sometimes I'll use slurs. Don't try to, but sometimes I do. So I'm not saying I'm perfect. What I am saying, though, is like I see me using slurs like that, or I see me making like little speculations as that's me being like weirdly like kind of like ableist. So I should monitor that. Yeah. Like
this is better than what you were saying before in the comments where you're calling him anti-black, because I know people with this kind of rhetoric, or like that just disagree with him because of his like anti-black separatist talking points. Like anybody who calls Vaush like anti-black, like who's like Professor Flowers or Cormentine, they come from that perspective.
Yeah, to be clear, I originally said racist. You and I argued, and then I said, okay, fine, anti-black. And then that's when like the argument got a little more heated. But
when you guys came on here, we differentiated between anti-black and racism, and then you went back to racist. So like the label that we are currently on is racist, not anti-black.
Yeah. So
I think anti-black is. I think being anti-black is racist. I think Nick Fuentes is anti-black.
Well, you also differentiated it earlier as well, though, where you can be anti-black and racist, but we all agree that anti-black is a little bit different than being racist. Like, you can be like against what the broader black public would say is the black agenda, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're racist, whereas you can actually like be racist and against the black agenda, right? So
I understand.
Yeah, so currently we are on the racist label, and I think Vaush was responding to the Jesse Lee Peterson stuff.
So two things I'm gonna say is just number one, I used that as a subset of racism. So what I mean by that is just racism against black people. That's what I mean by anti-black. So then secondly, what I was gonna say is,
wait, can I ask you a question real quick? Okay, when you say that, he was talking to Ethan Ralph and I think Flamenco. Yeah. So like, was he when he said that? Was he like trying to? Do you think when he said the tactical N-word, do you think he was actually trying to like hurt black people, or trying to say something anti-black towards black people?
We already established this. I don't think that he was like trying to make black people cry or anything. That's not what I think.
I want you to know how incredibly surreal it is to be like party to this conversation.
I know it probably is really weird for you. It's weird having you here now as well, but it's okay. We'll live with it.
Dude, it's weird having you here. Okay, I've been watching it for a freaking year, dude.
It's okay. So let me say the other thing that I was gonna state. The other statement I was going to make is that yes, I agree that someone like Jesse Lee Peterson very much so plays up on racial negative stereotyping and absolutely makes it his brand. And so I could see why someone could see that and be like, he's practically begging you. But I'll say...
Well, wait, would you? Like, wait, hold on, wait. I'm to speculate. What are you black?
No, I'm not black.
Okay. Can you imagine a situation where like a black guy would make that joke? Like watching Jesse Lee Peterson and seeing this guy go like, I am an Oreo cookie, black on the outside, white on the inside, and talk about how like, yeah,
A lot of my
like
black friends make fun of Uncle Ruckus. Like,
yeah, I swear. So this, I mean, this could be me like hardcore leaning into like edgy South Park humor or whatever. But in my opinion, I think that if it's possible for a person of one race to make a comment in a non-bigoted way, I think it's possible for anyone to. It just
right.
Like,
yeah, right. Because
I think it's trivially true. I think that's true.
Let's be honest, right? Like if Professor Flowers said this about like Jesse Lee Peterson, no one would care.
No, I would.
At all.
No, I
it'd be pretty funny, I think.
No, I think no one would care.
No, I think, well, maybe not anybody besides me, but I definitely would care. I've asked a lot of my black friends not to say stuff like that because I do think it is racist, right? And I'm not black, right?
Oh, I admire the consistency, if nothing else.
Yeah, I admire consistency too, because I asked him this like.
I try to be consistent. I'm not the best at it, but I try. So what I was gonna say is this, okay? So
you know, there are people who would say that you're being racist by telling black people that they can't make. Yeah, I just it's
black people.
I'm
the infinite whirlpool, right?
Yeah, everyone's racist in some way. Like I know. What I was gonna say though is this, okay? Fuck, what was I about to say? So what I was gonna say is, I think that yes, he basically is asking people to because that gives him profit. But to me, the same way that I wouldn't be inclined to let like a straight friend or any friend whatsoever make fun of Milo Yiannopoulos by calling him the F word, because he literally tells people, just call me the flaming F word. I can't do a British accent, but you get it. All Milo Yiannopoulos is the most dangerous F slur in the world. Like, you know, he's basically like telling you to do it because that's his marketing strategy. But because he's inviting you to, I wouldn't do so because I recognize that a lot of other black people, or in this case, gay people, wouldn't like that comment. And I'm not going to make a comment so superfluously for fucking like Milo Yiannopoulos or Jesse Lee Peterson. To me, it's like, it's just deeply superfluous. And so it's like, why would I do something so deeply superfluous? Like, you know what I mean? Like, to engage with Jesse Lee Peterson to make fun of him, you don't have to say stuff like that.
Well, sure. Well, yeah, just to be clear, I mean, I'm not really like dying on the hill of the Uncle Tom discourse or anything. I'm only saying that I think that there are better explanations using language like that than just like underlying racial animus. Right. Like with the F slur thing, for example, which we're just on YouTube, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I was saying faggot. To that, like that term, it's basically just like a mean way of saying gay, right? The Uncle Tom thing has alleviating contextual stuff. It's not just like a mean term for black people. It insinuates or signifies something else. It's another role or a trope. So I don't know if it's perfectly analogous. I understand the need to be consistent with stuff like this, but
and it's like, you know,
oh god,
I'm sorry, you know, I do agree with you, Vaush, that you know, you're using the word Uncle Tom towards Jesse Lee Peterson because he does enable those kind of like white talking points.
Once I think we're like a good year and a half out from that or anything. So I'm not
from the Uncle Tom discourse.
I don't even know if it was discourse, because I think like 98% of people would like hear that term and then go, "Oh my God, he said that," and then look at Jesse Lee Peterson and go, okay, well,
yeah,
you know what I mean?
That was kind of my reaction as well. Yeah, so, like it's like I don't know if you should say that, and then all of a sudden it's like, wait, but it's Jesse Lee Peterson. Like that's a little different.
Yeah, but like if someone calls Milo Yiannopoulos the F word, we're not going to be like, well, most people.
That's different though.
Basically, yeah, it is different.
Yeah, because you call him that because he's gay, but you
be perfectly good, right? Like,
yeah, but you call him that because he's gay, though. You're not calling like. But he's calling him. Okay, when the difference is with the F.
So with that aside, I think that particular thing, I feel like, because we can take a few steps back from the initial claim, right? By the way, I'm putting you in an impossible situation right here, okay? Yeah, as I learned with Count Dankula, it's literally impossible to debate somebody's implicit biases directly to that person because they always can explain away their behavior. Yeah, the only thing that I would say is, like, I did see a little bit of the stream before I jumped in. I feel like a lot of the edginess that I engage in with other groups doesn't really get noticed as much, you know what I mean? Like, for example, you said that, like, with the tactical N-word, like, I was willing to do that, but I've never said the T-slur. I'm pretty sure I've said the T-slur in my stream. Like,
it's not that you haven't said the T-slur, it's that you don't use the tactical T-slur.
Well, it's never really come up because I've never argued with Nazis who kept saying the T slur, but then switched to saying literally T slur. You know, the context has never really been there.
Ralph are people like actually a lot of the conservatives are people like that. I think Lauren Southern actually used to say the T slur in private.
Well, but no, I mean, I've never had that conversation with. I'll say this clearly, I would have done the same thing if I was talking with like Nazis and they were saying like, oh yeah, these T slurs are disgusting, they're men, they're hairy, whatever, and then later on in the convo they switched and stopped saying the slur and started just saying quote T slur end quote. I probably would have pulled the same stunt. I don't know if I would have gotten canceled for it as hard either because I've said the T slur has
not canceled as hard, but my thing is just like. So, obviously, it's superfluous to say the N-word in this context, right? And
well, a lot of stuff is superfluous, right?
Well, that's not the point, right? Like, I'm saying it's superfluous, so I'm trying to figure out what made you decide on this. So, we have a couple of candidate explanations. If you're saying it's rhetorical edge, that can't be the explanation. There are other things that we can conceive of that are rhetorically just as advantageous. So, it's not really about the rhetorical advantage. It seems like it'd have to be something else. And so when we look at the other cases in conjunction with this case, it seems like all of them seem to imply that there's some underlying unconscious bias against black people.
It was just in that convo, I just noticed I was talking to really racist people and they switched from using the slur to using the abbreviation for the slur. And I just thought I'd call them out on it because I thought they were trying to cow me a little bit earlier.
Yeah, because you know the languages, right? Like you already know how they speak and everything. You already know how Ethan Ralph is, and you know how Flamenco is, because Ethan Ralph said it on the Drunken Peasant stream when you were debating him, right?
Oh yeah, and at the time they were saying like the K-slur too about Jews. They were saying like it felt it just felt like they were being. Look, I was holding them to being consistent, right? You can appreciate that.
Right.
I felt like they were being inconsistent with their slur delivery, so I thought I'd call them out on that.
Right.
Well, no, I mean. It wasn't like a hard thought out tactic or anything like that. It was just,
Yeah, I know you didn't sit here and run like a computation device that was set to calculating the rhetorical efficacy of like the N-word, obviously. What I'm saying is just that if we look at obviously something like saying Uncle Tom that has racial charge socially, you're smart enough to know that, you're a sociology major, I trust that given your background, given what you talk about, given who you are, you probably are aware of this. Say it about Jesse Lee Peterson. The reason that you gave a second ago is because, well, he basically is telling you to. And I'm saying, even that is just saying, well, Jesse Lee Peterson asked people to be racist to him. Like, that's not really an explanation.
Well, hold on. I'm not saying he. Wait, hold on. First of all, I don't think that any of this is inherently racist. So I'm not giving that point up.
Yeah.
Huh?
I don't think we're talking about inherency claim. I agree.
Okay, well then I don't think I was racist towards Jesse Lee Peterson, and I don't think that he asked anyone to be racist towards him. He's plenty racist towards himself. He doesn't need the help. I'm only saying that he plays the caricature of an Uncle Tom, the historical, archetypal, social figure, as closely as any human can. So that pantomime was what was being pointed out, not necessarily like anything else. And if I think if like non-white people can point that out, and it's fine when they do it, I think it's possible contextually for white people to do it as well. Anyway, like, but also keep in mind the points you're making, couldn't they be selected for like any bias? I make sexist jokes all the time in my stream, and Lord knows I've been called transphobic all over the place. If your argument is that I'm specifically biased against black people in a way I'm not towards other groups, I feel like there are probably a bunch of other people who'd go like, nuh-uh, hold on, Vaush is super transphobic. This isn't just about black people. And then they'd be like, it's not just about black and trans people. Indigenous people have also gotten the shaft from Vaush. And you could run the whole line down, right?
So, a couple of things. Number one, if what you're telling me is the context of you calling him an Uncle Tom was more along the lines of, well, I'm just pointing out he's playing on the stereotype of the Uncle Tom, right? Like, you could have just said that he's trying to basically be like, like he's just trying to.
You already said you think that like a black person could point out that like make that comment about him.
Yeah, that's a problem, right? Because this is what he said during the debate. He said that.
One second. He said that. I was going to say that. Yeah, I was going to say real quick that we're talking about the Jesse Lee Peterson stuff. The context I know of it is very minimal. I've just seen that you've called him an Uncle Tom in the past. So what I'm saying is, if the context was you were using it in like not a use sense, but a mention sense, right? So there's like the use mention fallacy that we talk about in philosophy. If you're saying that you were merely referring to it as a category of description of stereotype, that might be the case, but then I would adjust kind of my view on this, and I wouldn't say you're specifically biased. I would just say that there's obviously a bias there whatsoever.
Yeah. But the problem that I have is, well, the problem I have with this is that when you were calling him racist, I asked you, like, who do you think is more racist, like Professor Flowers or Vaush? And you were like, well, she's like a little racist. I think Vaush is a little bit more racist than her. Like, when you said that, I was like,
a little more racist than her.
I think so.
I mean,
I said that from what I know of her, because I don't know her that well, she seems like she's actually not that racist. It'd be comparable.
Dude, come on, dog. I know you watched a debate with her and Vaush. I won your YouTube video, and you showed, dude.
Actually,
you want like his
whole video.
You didn't watch the debate?
No, I shouldn't watch.
You should.
I watch every Vaush debate.
Dude, that's kind of weird. That's weird because I'm looking at you.
The debate, and you can ask Tom Foolery, is because he was doing a stream about it. I watched Tom Foolery streams. Then I
look at you. Dude, I saw your YouTube video where you showed like Vaush like a plethora of like old disco logs like 3 years ago talking about horsecock. I know you watched.
But hold on, that's a Twitter.
Wait, hold on. How fastidious? Wait, hold on. Wait, are we all casual Vaush haters or are we professional Vaush haters in here?
What do you mean by professional? What do you mean by professional?
That you would ask that question is telling. Wait, how committed are we to Vaush being bad?
So I'll tell you my opinions, but let me just go back a little bit. So I just want to say this, and then I'll give you the answer. Okay, just so we don't get completely derailed. So to be clear, what I'm saying is just that I do think you have a bias against Black people. If what you're telling me is the context of the Jesse Lee Peterson stuff is a little more nuanced, I'm willing to see that. So if you can post the video or whatever, I'm willing to see that.
I don't even know what video it is. I don't even know what we're talking about.
Yeah, that's
okay.
So say hold on. Okay, hold on. So say the Jesse Lee Peterson stuff is a little bit more nuanced. What about the Black women all talk the same?
Oh no!
Well,
I'm committed to the position on that one.
Well, that was a misspeak. The full video shows that when Shaq got on my case, I said, "Oh, I meant to say all conservative Black women talk the same."
Yeah, I know you're saying it's a misspeak. What I'm saying is that I watched it, and my opinion and takeaway from that was, in conjunction with the other stuff, that's all basically just showcasing some underlying bias. You even conceded at the beginning that you have underlying biases.
Well, I think everyone does about everything because we all carry those biases. Right? But not all biases are like notable or worth speaking on. Of course, they're just sort of latent.
Some of them are trivial. Yep.
I don't necessarily know if it's fair to say like you misspoke and that's evidence of your underlying racism. I misspeak like
it itself is
dozens of times per stream.
The thing is, though,
kind of a meme.
Well, hold on.
The problem,
because we even separated what it is to say something racist and to be a racist, and we separated these two things to say that just because somebody says something racist, it doesn't make them a racist.
We already made the distinction,
right? So you would have to connect like what it is he's saying to him, or like him saying something racist to him being a racist, right?
I think if you've had thousands of hours of streamed content, you can probably like pull together any disparate narrative you want.
That's literally what I said too in the comments.
But with that in particular, like the statement that I was trying to make, and it makes sense in context too. Like if you take a look at what was the lead up to that misspeak and what took place afterwards, it makes way more sense for me to have said conservative Black women than just Black women. Like this statement, Black women in and of itself wouldn't have made sense with the preceding and following context. And it was the context that, like, I mean, you called her a Candace Owens clone, didn't you? A lot of conservative Black women adopt similar talking points and mannerisms because, well, there's a narrow range of ways to express yourself as a Black person and still be acceptable to a conservative audience. At least narrower than in broader society. I think we can agree to that, right?
I think it's that too, and I think this Candace.
Yeah, allow SDK to respond.
Yeah, only because we have like 3 people. So hold on, just 1 second. I was gonna say that my thing is, yes, I don't think that you're saying it with like this pure intention The reason I'm saying it's unconscious is because I don't think you're sitting here saying, "Oh, we hate black people," blah 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 blah. My point is just that isn't like a singular instance where you said something that sounded a little iffy about black people. There are other instances where you said things that you would have to agree at least appear kind of iffy about black people. And so,
but haven't I said stuff that appear iffy about every minority group at this point? I feel like I'm pretty holistic.
It doesn't really matter because the question is if you're racist. So even if, like, you know what I mean? Like,
well, isn't it possible that just the language that I use tends to be a little bit?
If I were racist against
edgy?
every group, that wouldn't mean that I'm not racist.
Well,
in Vaush's defense, he calls me slurs all the time.
Who the fuck? Who the fuck is that?
Is like, yeah, so I was say, my thing is just
wait.
against every group. That doesn't really.
It's Dylanburns Vaus.
If I call every racist group every like slur that's listed on Wikipedia or whatever, I'm not suddenly the perfect anti-racist. I'm just someone who uses racist slurs against everyone.
Right. Well, sure. So when it comes to stuff like this, I think you have to establish like a general pattern of behavior, a sort of template upon which you can derive any abnormal types of behavior. So, for example, if a person is generally kind of edgy, like they engage in a lot of generally edgy sort of racial humor, but it's across the board. Like they'll make jokes like, "Oh yeah, dude, like Uncle Tom, Jesse Peterson, like white people, fucking Mayo side, whatever shit like that." They're just like edgy.
Yep.
What if they're like across the board, that kind of stuff? I feel like you'd need to like you'd need to like establish a deviation from that trend in order to indicate they have a particular bias. But if a person's like Mr. Rogers all the time, where they're super level and super calm, but even if they're like a little off about one group of people, the fact that they're normally so composed, that would be more of an indication against them. So for me, the fact that I misspeak constantly, engage in edgy humor constantly, I feel like again, this makes your case really difficult, but I feel like it's hard for me to look at these few like he misspoke one time, and also he called Jesse Lee Peterson a person who you agree you could see like black people calling an Uncle Tom. Like I don't know what this all leads into. Like I don't know how much of a narrative it builds.
Let me ask you this. I do want to return to an earlier question, but I'll get back to that. So I just want to say this, right? If I could prove through some sort of mathematical, like perfect philosophical computer device that Milo Yiannopoulos is actually very racist, but he's equally racist to every group, would you say him calling a black baby the N-word is actually him just being some sort of egalitarian? Like, no, right?
No.
Well, no, but in that case, you wouldn't have to point at like bias. That would just be explicitly racist, right?
Yeah, I mean, Molly Yiannopoulos sent a picture of a black baby to Ben Shapiro.
My point is, you're saying let's look at how you normally act with other groups and so on and so forth. What I'm telling you is, it doesn't really matter how you act with other groups, so long as I see that you're doing things that do specifically target a particular group in such a way that even if you don't mean to, even if it's not specific in the sense that, oh, I'm doing this singularly to them, but you're doing it as in you're using, say, like a term that solely applies to them. That is specific enough to meet the specificity clause that I'm talking about.
Didn't you say there were non-racist ways to use the Uncle Tom thing?
Okay, so yes, I did. What I'm saying is I'm trying to figure out the context now because you're telling me it's a different context than the context that I know of. And that's what I'm saying.
It's not even a context. It's just I don't think it was you know the context of Jesse Lee Peterson, don't you? He's he plays a stereotype.
Is that the context you said it in? I know the context of Jesse Lee Peterson.
That's JesseLee Peterson. That's who he is. He's Jesse Lee Peterson.
But this rest on your claim, like that there was a broader context of the one that you're describing that you were merely.
No. I think the
context is that he's Jesse Lee Peterson. It's not just a black guy. It's the black guy who goes with a cotton picking bag. I mean, he's the most.
But let me ask you this: are you saying that you were merely saying that he plays upon this role that he himself would describe as like an Uncle Tom role, or are you saying you called him an Uncle Tom because he's inviting you to?
I didn't. He didn't literally invite me to. Well, okay, wait, hold on. I feel like this is very. I can't tell if this is bad faith.
Yeah.
And just answer me. Do you think, can you imagine like a group of black people looking at Jesse Lee Peterson and going, oh my God, that dude's an actual Uncle Tom?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. Do you think a person in that group being white, like that, it makes that person racist if he brings that up? Or?
That's not what I'm saying. Makes the people racist. I think the black people in that context would be racist if they mean it in like the conventional sense.
What is the
Hold on a second.
conventional sense?
The conventional sense is in using some sort of behavior or employing some sort of behavior or attitude that is prejudiced or discriminatory on the basis of race. So if they're using a comment or like a remark.
So can you think of a non-racist reason to do that?
Yeah. So like if PewDiePie pays some random kid who doesn't understand what he's saying.
No. Not like some weird edge case where like you don't speak the language. I mean, can you think of a non-racist like reason why a person might call Jesse Lee Peterson?
Are you talking about like the usement? Okay, just calling him an Uncle Tom.
What else did I do?
Okay,
Right.
What I'm gonna say is if you're calling him an Uncle Tom, yeah, no, that just seems prima facie just racist.
So you don't think it's possible for there to be a non-racist like context to that?
Well,
at
you're
all?
saying
like,
possible, and then I'm explaining to you possible cases we're in, and then you're saying, well, actually, I don't mean.
but like real possibilities,
So,
not like the person wasn't speaking the language,
or the one that you're kind of implying, and I'll tell you.
Shut. That it's just that you just said it because he plays the stereotype, and that's it.
That's what I asked you about at the beginning.
Okay.
Wait, hold on. Wait, I'm very confused about like the language that we're engaging in right now because I'm not entirely sure how we're coming at this. So wait, okay. So wait, hold on. Okay, so you don't think anything is inherently racist, right? Like it's all determined by context and outcome, right? Consequentialism build.
No, because so when you're saying anything, obviously racism itself is. So I mean, like it depends on how you're delineating. Let's say basically, yeah.
Okay, so if it's not inherently, you have to use the language people use as a way of inferring what they actually think, like their actual beliefs, their actual biases, right?
Yeah.
Now, can you think of any reason at all why a person might call Jesse Lee Peterson an Uncle Tom in a way which isn't inferring they're being racist? Not with like they're not speaking the language or they fell down a flight of stairs and managed to on every step utter a syllable that eventually added up to calling Jesse Lee Peterson Uncle Tom.
So
Just
I think I could ask
you're
this
talking
better.
about some case where the term is socially charged, they recognize that social charge, and in spite of all of that recognition and that acknowledgement in a social context, they're willing to use it. And they're
I don't think social charge means that it's inherently racist, though.
SDK. SDK.
Claim.
SDK.
So it's not relevant whether or not it's like,
SDK.
Okay, JMMA, go ahead.
So do you think there's a difference between Vaush calling Jesse Lee Peterson Uncle Tom and comparing that to, I give you an example of, okay, this happened last year when Quarantine and 4 and 3 other black people were talking about Ahrelevant and Prime Kai. And, okay, don't cringe, I'm black, okay? So I'm going to say this. So,
oh boy.
Essentially, Quarantine and them called Ahrelevant and
I think
Prime
Kai
Kai.
would be racist if that's what you're asking, Jay.
That's it. No, but do you think that's different? Do you think this is different where he called Ahrelevant a C-word ass nigga and comparing that to Vaush calling like Jesse Lee Peterson Uncle Tom? Because this wasn't even about race. This was just Ahrelevant disagreeing with them for socialism.
I think that's worse if that's what you're asking.
Yeah, because this wasn't about race. This was about just Ahrelevant disagreeing with them with socialism.
Yeah,
it wasn't even about.
But I don't see how that's relevant. So I just want to get back to what I was saying.
It is relevant.
It's not relevant. We agreed on this from the outset. No, nobody's disagreed about this. So what I'm going to say now is you're talking. So Vaush, you're saying that, well, that's not inherently racist. I never made the claim that in every possible conceivable scenario that it's racist, obviously.
Well,
so,
the example,
how you're bounding inherency here.
The example that you gave of it maybe not being racist was a person being paid to hold up a sign saying it when they don't speak the language, which seems to me like a ludicrous.
Obviously, you're trying to like.
No, hold on. Let's not baby's first inherency claims here. Obviously, when we're talking about whether or not something is inherently X or Y.
But like to what degree?
Oh, wait, come on. Please talk to me as a man. Am I not a man?
All right, real quick. So it seems as though like.
Am I not a man?
The definition.
Wait, answer. I need the answer to that.
SDK, he wants to know if you think he's a man.
I mean, inherently, I don't know. Like, okay.
Come on,
Or
wait,
you think
we
just-
can't.
Come on,
we
just answer the question.
You're
real quick,
already.
'cause I feel
You're
like
already trying to piece together biases that I have based on like 3 or 4 things that have happened over 2.5
Yeah, I
years and
think that's
thousands of hours
sufficient.
of live streaming.
I think that
Okay,
is
but-
sufficient. I'm sorry,
okay.
Vaush, that is sufficient. If you call a black person the N-word one time, but it was just one time. We were in a car.
It is
I never
like
called a black
N-word,
person. I've
But
never
if
called a
you're
black person
the N-word.
event, like obviously that's
Wait,
still
I've
going
never-
to be a case.
They
where-
never call
I'm not
somebody
saying-
the N-word.
I'm not saying I'm giving an analogy. Just because it's one,
Why give an
time,
example then if you ain't called somebody that?
It's an analogy, dog. Like, what are you talking about?
Well, I just want to be
So
clear. I've
anyways.
never called a black person the N-word.
correct. Yes, he's not saying you
ever.
called anybody the N-word.
Yes, we're
Okay.
Vaush.
So,
We're
do you
past that.
agree with his analogy, Vosh?
Which one?
The
Oh my
if you
God,
call
really?
a black
Just be honest with me,
person,
dog.
hold on, if you call a black person the N-word one time, that like this is a pretty obvious sign that you are a racist. Not you specifically,
Actually,
just as an
inherently, I don't
example.
I mean, it'd definitely be a pretty strong indicator. Yeah, I'd say so. It'd be
That's
a
all
pretty.
I'm saying. I'm not saying
Yeah,
necessarily.
but what does
you
that
are.
have to do?
Yeah.
Just
So
let's move the
this is
conversation.
all I'm saying is, I know it's not like, oh, I have a million hours of Vaush talking about the white ethnicity. I'm not saying you're Nick Fuentes. I'm saying that these
Not
couple
saying
of
that.
instances
I
to
am.
me are sufficient. Yeah,
Thank
you're
you, Dylan.
Nick Fuentes. True.
So-
No, I'm just kidding. But
Okay, so hold on. Just to be clear, me saying black women instead of conservative black women, me pointing out that the Nazis I was arguing against stopped saying the N-word and instead just started saying, quote, the N-word.
calling a black
And
person Uncle Tom,
and
yeah.
and yes, which I think I don't really think is inherently racist.
I'm not
Those
saying it's inherently racist. I think
okay,
it's
but when
really-
you say it's not inherently racist, what you mean is, well, it wouldn't be racist if in your sleep you said it out loud because you were having a bad dream, but then when you woke up you immediately
Actually, that might be
disavowed it.
racist. Depending on the context, that might be racist. Yeah, I don't know.
All right,
Like,
big
what I'm
brother.
saying is, what I'm saying
Yeah,
is,
no, okay. Well, this
But-
to me sounds like an impractically high, like I would actually say like
if you mean
borderline.
like practically racist, yeah, I would say that is practically racist.
No, I would say like
Oh.
this is an absurd and almost stupidly bad faith way of assessing a person's
I
beliefs.
meing, just calling it bad faith isn't an argument.
Okay,
You
so
understand?
calling
it
you
seems,
racist,
hold on.
Neither is you
All right,
misspoke,
hold on.
therefore you secretly actually were being
You
racist.
call
Okay,
black
hold
people
on,
a
hold
thing
on,
that's
hold
used
on,
to
hold
compare
on.
them to slaves, therefore you're racist?
SDK,
Yes.
hold on
so do
one
you think?
second.
Wait, hold on. Do you think every black person who's ever said another black person
Yes,
is an Uncle
Vosh.
Tom
I
person?
know it's crazy, but calling black people something that compares them to slaves is racist. I know it's crazy, right?
Wait, hold on. It's not. Hold
so
on.
you don't think
really quick.
comparing
Wait,
black people to slaves is racist?
Hold on. First of all,
Wait, hold
I
on.
don't
You're
know how much-
dodging. No, you're dodging. Wait, what do you think about that?
He's got his blood's firing.
Wait,
up.
what do
He
you
can feel
think
the
about
pulse in
that?
his head.
Wait, what do you,
Hold
no,
on.
come on, Vosh, I'm just
First
asking.
of all,
SDK, let him
all,
answer.
the uncle STK, calm down. It's okay. I know you're not going to get another chance to talk to me, but you need to calm down.
Yep. Okay, so what's your answer?
This guy was compiling Discord logs to me before, right? Like he's
I was
pretty
compiling
invested, isn't he?
Discord.
Yes, dude.
Okay,
Even
yeah,
because the
alright.
YouTube video, like,
Yeah.
that's like 30
Okay,
seconds
so
showing you
look,
like
if you
Thugger
wanna
Ranks
answer
Cop in
the question,
2018.
just-
Okay.
Okay, he's got
All
his blood up.
All right, let Vosh answer the question, okay?
So first of all, anyway, calling
So no
black,
answer.
calm down. Calling a
I'm
black
calm
person an
down,
Uncle
yes.
Tom isn't just comparing them. First of all, I don't think that any comparison is inherently racist. But
Oh, I
second
bet.
of all,
All
Can
right,
we-
I'm gonna
can we get
mute you
into,
for a
like-
second,
yeah,
SDK, so
he's
he can
fired up.
answer. Okay.
But also, the term Uncle Tom, when used disparagingly now, is generally used to refer to people who feel, well, it's in reference to a narrative character, essentially like a black person who plays apologetics for the institution of slavery. So in Jesse Lee Peterson's case, he literally does that. I'm pretty sure he's actually like defended like the black work ethic under slavery. This is a person who is if he was written into the story, if he was the Uncle Tom literally in the narrative sense, he would have been able to fulfill essentially the same narrative role. So when we're talking about like your reductive analysis here, like you're comparing a black person to slaves, that's deliberately reductive. You're missing out all of the context that makes it a salient comparison. The reason why people would have called it. If it was just comparing black people to slaves, then Uncle Tom would be used ubiquitously and interchangeably with other anti-black slurs. But it's not. It has other narrative meaning besides the weight of the slur. You keep avoiding that by reducing it down to comparing to slaves, but you know that's not actually what it means. The fact that you're getting super fired up right now, and the fact that this fairly obvious meaning to the word is slipping you by makes me think you're more interested in the dunks than you are the consideration, which isn't surprising to me from a person who brags about telling their black friends to not say the N-word as a white person. That is a very interesting.
White, though, so that's not even true.
Oh, wait, what? Okay, are you black?
Nope, but I'm not white.
Then as a non-black person. There we go.
Anyways, hold on. Wait, is it my turn to speak now, Tom? Can you mute him?
Yeah, go ahead and talk.
Okay. I don't talk over you, so
he keeps interrupting me. Can you tell him to stop?
Okay, go ahead.
You keep interrupting him.
Vaush, you talked for a good bit, so let him get his long spiel out.
Yeah, it's not going to be long. Like, I'm not denying that there are other aspects of it. What I'm saying is, if your agreement to me is there are several aspects that are involved in saying someone's an Uncle Tom, we know that one part of it is calling them, in comparison, a slave. I'm not saying that's the only thing it does.
Oh my god!
Can you mute JMMA as well? He's interrupting. So, anyways, obviously that's one aspect. I'm not saying that's the sole aspect, Vaush. I understand there are other aspects, like for instance, right? Them being black. Like, yes, obviously there are other aspects. We know there are other aspects to what it means to call someone an Uncle Tom. I'm not saying that's the only thing. I'm saying that is a thing. You're well aware of that thing. You use it anyways, and you know people are probably going to take it that way on some level. That seems awfully racist to me. The other thing I was going to say is the video that I listed was like, it's not like some like crazy thing. It's something
on Twitter.
It's from Twitter. Yeah, I can show you the Twitter account if you need it. But my other thing is, I'm not trying to like bad faith you. You accused me of bad faith, and I asked you genuine questions. If you want to be chill or whatever, I'm down to be chill, like unironically. Like I don't really care. My thing is just
why not chill then?
I'm talking and I'm chill right now. What are you talking about? Anyways, so my thing is, if we're gonna be chill, it's fine. My thing is just that, and a couple of other like slip ups just seem kind of weird to me. Would you not agree that it seems a little weird, bare minimum?
No, I don't think it's weird.
You don't think saying the N-word, calling someone an Uncle Tom and shit is like? I'm being serious. I'm being so serious.
What type of analysis there? Do you think it was weird when you did that? What do you mean? I'm weird on my stream 24/7. Do I think in the context of my stream? Do I think in the wait? That's not.
I'm interrupting. My bad. I'm gonna go on mute. My bad.
Do I think in the context of my streams, any of this is like out of the ordinary? I guess maybe a little, which is why you're talking about things that happened like once. So I guess they're statistically abnormal in that respect, but weird in the sense that they suggest that I'm racist. No, I obviously don't think that. I've been arguing against that. And right now your position is like, well, I know there are other ways this could be used, but the fact that you did a thing that people might interpret it racist, that's pretty racist. That's just... I mean, if we're fitting stuff within that purview, we might as well just include like every bias for everyone, right? Because like I guarantee you, if I look through your like online comment history, given the way you talk, something tells me you're not the most expediently calm and conscientious person in all of your messages. Something tells me I could probably pull together a couple messages from you, and then, well, you're not a huge public figure, right? But if somebody wanted to, they could pull that together and say, well, don't you think it was weird when you said that? These aren't good arguments to me. So I guess I was kind of hoping that you were approaching this from an earnest interest in understanding these issues, but it just kind of seems like you came here with a conclusion, right?
Okay, so real quick, I think what he's trying to say is that there are a number of things to where he feels as though he can see a pattern over time. In the like 2 or 3 or 4 different things over time is something to where he can build a narrative. Now, STK, do you agree with that? Yes or no, real quick? Okay? So can you respond to what he was saying? Because you did say this. You said, calling someone something racist and knowing it will be interpreted as racist sounds pretty racist to me. Can you clarify what that means?
Yeah, so I might have misspoken, but I said this already earlier. I mean also an additional clause of like, you're playing up on it. Like when we're calling Jesse Lee Peterson like an Uncle Tom, right? It's not like, oh, we're calling him that because we fell asleep and then like the atoms in our mouth moved in such a way that we accidentally elicited that like language. Like, no, obviously. Vaush and I just agreed to that already. What I'm saying is, if you're saying that, he's trying to play up on that stereotype, and then you're making a recognition of that stereotype with that kind of language, that recognition of how it's used, that recognition of how it's probably going to be interpreted, and then playing up on the thing he's asking you to play up on, essentially speaking.
Wait, what if he wasn't playing up on it? What if it was just a random black conservative that enables white supremacy?
What are you talking about? Like, what do you mean?
I'm asking, like if a conservative was actually, like, if he actually, like, believed these things. Because are you saying that Jesse Lee Peterson just wants people, he's forcing people to call him that? He wants people to call him that?
No, I don't think he's forcing. Yeah, I do think he wants people to call him an Uncle Tom. I think it's his branding.
Yeah, but what if there's like a...
Well, I'm just curious. Do you think it's racist to call to make the Uncle Ruckus comparison?
Yeah, like, honest to God, I do. I try not to do it because I think it would just be like racist and stuff. Like, so for instance,
do you think it was racist for the black writers of the Boondocks to write Uncle Ruckus as a character?
Unironically? Like, do you want my serious answer? Like, all jokes and shit aside? Yeah, I do.
Okay, yeah, the world must be nightmarish from your perspective. Good Lord.
So just having the character exist on the show at all is automatically racist.
No,
I think it's racist when black people are mean in public because they know that people will look at them and interpret it in a way that reaffirms racial biases against black people.
Now you're just like acting on a straw man. So
no,
you're being
is,
bad
that's
faith.
what it sounds like, though. That is what it sounds like. It sounds like you're saying what makes a black person look bad. Okay, so with the Uncle Ruckus example, like just the character existing at all in the show
it's not the
is what makes it
just
racist.
Existing.
Okay, then what?
No. So I'll explain why I think it's racist. I think that like an Uncle Ruckus kind of character is racist. This is assuming the intention a little bit, but this seems plausible to me. And obviously you guys can explain why you think it's not that plausible if you don't have the same intuition. But I think it's trying to poke fun at, and this is who's the other guy? I think his name is like Tom Dubois, whatever the fuck. You know who I'm talking about, right? Like the neighbor. So him, for instance, he and Uncle Ruckus are basically supposed to be comments about, like, select people in the black community who, quote unquote, try and act white. Or, in the other case of Uncle Ruckus, who, quote unquote, try and, like, please the white man. Like, and I think it's like an insult. Like, it is a sort of commentary. I think you could just make a commentary isolated, but I don't think in this case it is just an isolated commentary. Like, I think it's very obviously pointed. I think they've even said in the past comments that very obviously suggest that it was pointed, like making fun of people who, quote unquote, act like that.
Do you think it's more of like, do you think it's more of like, hey,
fun of people like that?
Do I think it's okay
to make fun of people who act like Uncle Ruckus?
I don't really care, to be honest. I think it's like a little lame.
But Uncle Ruckus is racist. That's the main bad thing about him. He's anti-black.
Yeah, no, I said I don't care.
And they're writing about black culture, so they're talking about everybody. They're talking about everybody that's part of black culture. Black conservatives, or this black culture period.
Wait, can't you? Okay. Is it not okay? Wait, you don't care about? It's Uncle Ruckus is literally a satirical like presentation of anti-blackness in black people. Isn't it anti-racist to make fun of the anti-black racism from black people?
So let me just make sure I'm understanding your question right. You're saying, like, is it in like the material interest of black people to put down people like Jesse Lee Peterson so they don't spread their kind of rhetoric and beliefs? That's what you're asking?
I think it's in all our interests, but yeah, sure.
Okay. Yeah, I think like that's a good thing materially. What I'm basically saying is, because I thought you were referring back to like the slur discourse. So what I'm saying is, if you're going to use slurs and stuff, I'm not going to cry about it. But it does seem like racist. But if you're just saying making fun of them in general,
dude, you can't say nothing but cry about it. You've been calling them racist for like the past 2 hours. You can't say nothing but cry about it.
Also, to be fair, calling a person Uncle Ruckus is basically just the N-word of calling a person Uncle Tom, which is actually saying the slur. They mean the same thing when people use them against black people.
Yeah, so hold on. Let me rephrase. Maybe I didn't communicate well. What I said is, if you're going to use the slur, I think that's racist. If you're not using it in like a slur, like you're just saying, man, those people are lame. Those people really badly want to like just fucking sit here and like appeal to white people because they themselves are anti-black racists. Like, oh, okay, whatever. Like, who cares?
Don't you think it's racist to infer that they want to appeal to white people just because they're black and they have positions that happen to align with white supremacy? It seems like at that point you're just calling them an Uncle Tom without actually saying it, right?
Well, the thing is, like with the Uncle Tom stuff, it's the social connotation and playing on the social connotation that makes it racist. It's not if you say someone is sitting here and then fits what it's like partially referring to that makes it racist. So like someone might, and I'll give you a good example, like 4chaners, right? Like these are the kinds of people who will sit here and type on their keyboard and say, oh, everybody's the N-word, everybody's the N-word. They basically use the N-word equivalently to the way they use fucking person. Like it's so fucking like devoid of meaning apparently, right? Or this is what like these people claim. So if they're calling, wait 1 second, just give me 1 second, just 1 second, hold on. Okay, and then you can go after. My bad. I was gonna say, so if they're like calling everyone the N-word, yeah, like I guess like they may not mean it that way. That's a potential for sure, like a realistic one. I'm just saying that I know that they also are aware that it has a certain provocation, and they play up on that provocation because they think it's offensive. And I think they want to say it to low-key offend black people and other people who might get offended by it.
Yeah, well, yeah. 4chan's pretty racist, but I'm not. Okay, but we're not talking about ubiquitous racism in a community. We're just talking about the fact that colloquially, Uncle Tom and Uncle Ruckus, when used pejoratively, are basically the same thing, and they're used to describe anti-black black people or black people who enable, defend, or wax longing for, the days when black people were second-class citizens. So I don't think it's necessarily racist to make fun of those tropes, those caricatures of people, especially with regards to Uncle Ruckus, because that was a caricature made by black people as part of a broader satire, like of the political landscape, right? So is like Key and Peele racist? Does Dave Chappelle become racist? It feels like at this point, any kind of black comedy or black political thought becomes racist because all of it is invariably going to involve some self-critique. And usually aware self-critique politically from black people is going to involve at least something approximating, hearkening to caricatures, stereotypes, and tropes relating to white supremacy, including the slave days. So if you go through all of that, I mean, it seems like this is almost unavoidable unless you want to sanitize language beyond any utilitarian sense. Just for what? Yeah.
No, I don't really care for that. So let me
you're calling me racist because I don't sanitize my language. So you do clearly care enough about it to impugn.
I mean, you don't have to call people the N-word. Like,
can I ask you a question real quick?
No, hold on one second, because we're in the middle of a conversation. Just wait 1 second. I was gonna say, so my thing is like, I get the point you're trying to make. I thought I was clear. Maybe I'm misunderstanding your point. In which case, like, could you tell me like the thing that you're like responding to the topic of? Because I think I might be a little confused. So what I'm saying is, if you're just saying people who are like Uncle Ruckus are bad, depending on how you stipulate that, that could be fine, right? Like if you're saying people who are described in the Boondocks by the Uncle Ruckus character are like weird and anti-black, that I actually think might be kind of like, I think that might be a hard sell in terms of racism. If you're saying though, damn, you're just an Uncle Ruckus, that one feels pretty racist to me. Like that's the distinction I'm making.
It depends on the context to me, but
well, those are two contexts. So yeah, obviously. But like, Vaush, what's your response to that?
I guess I just don't see how. I mean, if a character exists to be a satire of a given political position, and you see somebody who's doing that IRL, and then you draw a comparison to that character, I don't think that's inherently racist.
I'm not like, I think it realistically is, just because of the fact that like part of the comparison, I would assume, is that like that racial aspect. Like, you know what I mean? Like earlier when we were saying,
is it racist to make a comparison that involves acknowledging the race of the person you're referring to?
No, it's using the race though. It's using the race, not like just acknowledging it.
So what if you make a movie about slavery? Is that movie racist because it
I don't think so.
But isn't that the same as like the Uncle Ruckus character, where it's something that is like putting racism on display? Like
that's Samuel Jackson and Django.
Well, if the slavery movie is like, here's black people today are just like this, LOL, then it's like, okay, that seems odd to me. Like if it's supposed to be some like pointed remark, but if it's not a pointed remark, like if the Uncle Ruckus stuff, and I think this is what Vaush is getting at, if you're using this as like just a purely descriptive thing, or that's like the attempt, and there's not really signs of anything defying that attempt, yeah, I'd say it's not. Like someone could make like, I'm trying to think of a really good one, but like we could just kind of make a hypothetical about Uncle Ruckus. If they made that character to play up on a belief about a stereotype and the beliefs people have about the stereotype, and that's just it, and people don't make comparisons using that stereotype as like a weapon, I'd be like, oh, whatever. When people do use it as like, you know, kind of a weapon, it's like, you know, it's like a weapon against black people specifically. So it is a little racist. It's not like Vaush is like a Nazi. It's not like anyone's a Nazi for saying it. You know what I mean? But it is like, it's a little weird.
But the problem is, though, is that a lot of people are calling him, you know, like.
I'm not one of those people. You keep bringing up other people. I don't care what other people do.
Yeah, but you're part of that group that calls him that, though.
Yeah, I'm not like concerned with what other people are calling Vaush. Like,
do you think it's
dumb if they're being wrong?
Do you think it's do you think it's racist to say that a person has white guilt?
To say a white, I'd have to think on it. That does sound like, yeah, it does sound like kind of racist, actually.
Do you think any negative or pejorative term which involves a person's race is racist? You know?
If it's like if it's weaponizing the racial aspect, like I would say so. That's like maybe that wasn't a clear answer. Maybe a little more clear. So if you're saying white guilt as in this is like a purely descriptive thing, it's not supposed to be weaponized, but you're saying that, and even then I don't really like the label, but let's just kind of grant it. Like, let's say it's merely meant to refer to, I think it was Jangles who said it, like it's merely meant to refer to how white people have specifically engaged in like remorse at like a social level over prior systemic oppression of other groups. Like that seems still very weird to me. I might be a little more 50-50 on that though.
Okay. About like self-hating trans people, if I say self-hating trans person, which I call Blair all the time, that's not technically a single term. I have to chain together a few terms there, but I'm essentially calling her the trans version of an Uncle Tom. Do you think that's transphobic?
Well, because I don't. Go ahead.
Well, because it seems like the logical conclusion of this is literally any impugning of a person's positions in relation to their identity is by default bigotry against their identity.
No, that's not my position. That's why we were having the argument about the comparison to slaves. So I think an embedded aspect in like the Uncle Tom stuff is the comparison to slaves. When we're talking about white guilt, like I just said, and that one seems like it could be a little like, you know, a little like low key, a little dog whistly, but you could potentially sell me on that one.
But is it a dog whistle? I mean, I've talked with and about black people all the time. What am I dog whistling with? No, I'm not saying your dog whistling. I'm saying if I call hypothetical like white guilt label, if that's purely meant as like some descriptive like social category, I wouldn't say that's like racist. It might be. I'd have to be like kind of convinced one way or the other. So if you're saying that in the case of calling someone a self-hating trans person, that seems purely descriptive to me. You might be able to use it as like, no, I'm being 100%. That seems purely descriptive in the sense that the transness isn't like the thing that you're making fun of, right? Well, like, what about? But nobody calls black people like Uncle Ruckus because they're racist against black people. Usually, the people who say that are anti-racist, aren't they? Because they're making fun of a black person for being self-hating.
Well, it depends. Like Tariq Nasheed, though. I mean, if you call somebody,
that's like true. But Tariq Nasheed, like, is like the reverse. I think that context is far enough away from what I do. You know what I mean?
We might have.
Oh no, I'm not comparing it to him, but
yeah, we might have different experiences on this. In my experience, I'll say this, and you just tell me if you have a similar experience. Every time I've seen someone call someone like an Uncle Ruckus that's black, like these are the same people who typically also call black people house slaves when they're conservative, or call them house N-words because they get annoying on Twitter and stuff. Like these are normally.
You really think that like that's like the most common parallel. Like people who use the term Uncle Ruckus to refer to self-hating black people are also the people who just flat out call them like the N-word or whatever. Like there's no other group of people who might use it as just a sort of casual deriding way of referring to self-hating black people in an anti-racist context.
Well, anti-race, so I think it could technically still be anti-racist in the sense that you're describing. I'm using it in a very different kind of like sense though. When I'm saying like anti-racist, to me that's not even like, I don't even know if I really like register that term on like a personal level. Like I understand what you're saying, but I don't really like use that kind of term. I just think you're either racist or you're not. And then
isn't
like,
that a bit reductive? Like you agreed we all have latent biases. Where's the line for being racist or not?
Well, I don't think that anyone's not racist, and that gets into the gradation that we were describing earlier. Like there might be trivial forms of like being racist and there are like non-trivial forms. That'd be the nuance that I would add.
Well then in that case it's not you're racist or you're not. It's whether or not you think it's trivial or not. Right?
Wait. My thing is that if we're talking about if it's like racist or you're not, you're saying stuff about like anti-racism, right? I'm telling you, I don't really register that term on a personal level because anti-racist, I think is supposed to be kind of similar to how I just define just being not racist. But to me, yeah, that's not really like a term that registers. So I would more so just favor like racist or not racist versus like racist or anti-racist. That's what I'm saying.
Don't you agree it's a wide spectrum? Only past a certain threshold would you acknowledge that a person's racism is.
Yeah.
Well, then it's not really this or that. It's sort of a broad. An anti-racist might mean a person who actively fights against racist tropes.
Well, there can be like. I'm sorry, I keep interrupting. Go ahead.
No, as opposed to a non-racist person who might just passively not engage with those tropes. You know, I mean, I think these are all pretty interconnected, but it's just so odd to me to have this discussion where you can't acknowledge the possibility that like a person could not like for like if you saw like a black guy or whatever and then you were friends with them and he was like a super chill dude and he was like an organizer and an activist and he was a lefty and he was like pro BLM and all that shit, and then one day like he saw a Jesse Lee Peterson clip and he was like, damn, that guy's an Uncle Tom, like for real. Like would you look at him side eyes and go like, oh shit, I didn't realize this dude was racist?
No, I'm not gonna stay here and like start bawling my eyes. Oh no, I can't believe my friend is. I'm just be like, oh damn, dude, like, you're built different, I guess. But my thing is just like,
do you think that they would be racist for doing that?
Yeah.
So they're racist now, like just that, like the whole life.
Again, we did separate saying racist things from being a racist earlier, though, right? So you're now saying that your friend who 2 minutes ago was not racist, now he said something racist and therefore is a racist. So you don't actually separate
I think it's
the
sufficient. Yeah, I think it's sufficient. Like,
if
you mean like non-trivially, I think it's like non-trivially. So I guess it's a little hard to delineate what.
Wait,
like,
I'm sorry. When you say non-trivially as well, like we talked about earlier, if somebody can't actually go through a logical thought process as to why something is racist, then they are probably actually a racist, right? So if they can't, like, if there isn't some sort of negative outcome to the racism, then that would mean that it's not actually racist, because that would take away the logic from the thought process of what is or isn't racist. So when you say trivial, it makes it sound as though you're saying there's not this negative outcome, which to me would say, therefore, it's not racist.
No, it's more like, I think it is racist. I think it's just a very low level of racism. So, like,
I guess what I don't get is that if you think calling black people the N-word inherently is racist, regardless of your race, and there's no bar between saying racist things and doing racist things, wouldn't that mean basically every single black person in America is racist?
We already agree on a trivial level. If you mean non-trivially, that's the thing. I'd be like,
calling black people the N-word pretty far up there? I've never done that, but you're calling me racist.
That's what I'm saying, though. I'm saying that you're asking, do I think every black person in the United States is racist? I said on a trivial level, yes, already. But if you're asking non-trivially, if every black person is calling other black people the hard R N-word, I mean, yeah, probably.
Oh, come on, no, not the hard R, both. It's like
Yeah,
the
because
hard R.
I mean, if
I
I
don't know
call,
about
if I
the
call
other
black people the soft A, wouldn't that be racist?
Come
Dude,
on,
black
dog.
people
Actually,
say some
don't think so.
wild
You
shit.
said the
about
N word. You didn't say the hard R. You said the N
No,
word.
actually,
Don't
no,
go
I
back.
don't think so. Vaush
You're
just said,
pivoting like crazy. You said the N word, not
wait,
N
can you
word,
not
the hard
interrupt
R.
me? Can you not interrupt me, Jay? Okay.
He
So,
can
I was
clarify
gonna say,
without pivoting. Like, that's okay.
yeah, I mean that's not even a pivot because I've never said that. For instance, saying the N word, soft A, or excuse me,
Go ahead and
A
clarify.
ending. Yeah, I've never said that saying the N word, like A ending, is racist because the entire context of this is about Vaush saying the hard R N word. So obviously that's what
Yeah,
we've been
but not
referring to the entire time.
at
If
black
anyone,
people.
no, I'm not saying you are. Hold on, I'll get to that point in a second. I'm just addressing.
Okay,
GM.
well then to ignore the soft A, like every black person who's ever said that hard R N word, which I'm willing to bet is the majority of them at some point in their life. Do you
Like
think
calling
that makes
someone
them all?
Mm-hmm.
I've never called anyone the N word.
No, I'm saying, are
Black
they calling
people.
someone that?
Yeah.
Yeah, like in this hypothetical.
Let's just say they say it without calling somebody it. Let's just say they say it in a context that isn't them directly referring to a
Dude,
person.
I'm a
I
said it like 2 days ago.
I want to know more about the context to say if they're non-trivially racist.
Wait, hold on. My context was arguing against Nazis and in favor of racial integration and like racial equality. What context could they say the hard R in that's less racist than the one I said it in?
So, for instance, saying, wow, people called my dad the N-word today. That's fucked up.
But I was using it referentially
saying-
as well. But I was also using it.
That's my point. Vosh, that's what I've been saying it from the beginning. We established this before you were even here. I'm aware that you weren't using it as in you were deploying it against black people. That was never the claim.
Not only that, I was using it referentially. I was pointing out
Whoa.
that they stopped
we
using
agreed
the
on
hard R. So
Yeah, we agreed on that already.
so then how is that racially suspect in any way if I was using it referentially?
It's because of the other things. It's because of the other things.
So you said the other things make it trivial, right? So how can something be racist and trivial at the same time?
No. I said that it makes it non-trivially racist. All those things considered. I said, and Vaush already agreed.
Okay,
with
so
this
then what are the
because-
other things?
Here, I'll go back to them. Give me 1 second. I was gonna say that we already all agreed that
I might have them here in my notes, but I don't.
Yeah,
see
it's
it.
okay. It's okay. I said we already all agreed that like trivially everybody might have a little bit of bias. So we're kind of like moving past. Like Vaush, you want to move past that, right? Like obviously we all agree on that bullshit.
Sure, but if we mean meaningful racism and you think language equals like existence, like saying racist stuff and being racist are the same, and you think that like it doesn't matter whether you're white or black, it just seems like there's no way around this theory without making maybe black people the most racist race in America. If speech and thought are aligned, black people say shit about black people way more than any other race just by matter of proximity. So it seems like they would be maybe I don't know, maybe the Nazis want a white ethno state so they can get all those anti-black racist black people out of there, maybe they're just trying to finally be rid of racism.
Also, I almost forgot about this point. Hold on, let me not drop this point because I almost forgot about it. So you were saying that racist and not racist is like reductive. The way I see it, and maybe this wasn't properly communicated, I see it as like a gradation. It's like a scale of like 1 to like, I don't know, let's say like 1 to a million, I don't know, like, or 0 to a million. Like you can get asymptotically close to 0. You can get asymptotically to a million. Even if it's the case that you're still on that range of like racist to not racist. Like that's kind of what I was getting at, if that makes it a little more envisionable. The other thing I was going to say though is if we're talking about like a bunch of black people potentially being like really racist towards themselves, more racist to black people than really anybody else, on like an individual level, that actually might be the case. I've heard that there is research. I'm not saying I know the research, by the way, so don't ask me. But I've heard that there is research suggesting. I've heard that there is research suggesting, like I think in like it's either like sociological work or like philosophical work, where a lot of black people have internalized racism very much so, and so they might actually be propagators of racism. So that doesn't seem that outlandish when you've heard about stuff like that. And I know you've talked about stuff like internalized racism before. So I know you don't.
I think they'd be like the most racist then. I think more than any other race because they're always dropping hard R's, man. Black people are crazy with the hard R.
Well, I don't think they are.
That's for sure.
That might. Okay. When you say black, do you mean like more than 50%, or like if you had to ballpark a number?
I don't measure their skulls when I hear the language they use.
Oh my Lord. I'm saying if you had to measure a percentage of how many black people call other black people in a use sense, not a mention referential sense, the N-word, are you saying it's upwards of 50%?
Well, I'm trying to draw a parallel to me because I've never called a black person the N-word. So when we're saying
if you just want to make parallels to you, we can go back to that a little bit more clearly. I'm saying that I thought your kind of like engagement here was just, oh, well, you're kind of committed to this position that black people have internalized racism so much that on an individual level, they're the ones who seem to like have the most anti-black bias. And I'm saying that doesn't seem that implausible if what you're saying is there's a significant portion that do versus like a majority portion or like a super majority portion. That doesn't seem that outlandish to me, because even if it's like 10%, that's millions of black people who have like an implicit bias against themselves or even a conscious bias against themselves.
Well, I guess I'd have to ask what the like consequential utility of your definition of racism is if there's a direct transposition between speech and behavior. And it can include stuff like this. I mean, if we're including everyone who's ever called, like, who used the term like Uncle Tom or Uncle Ruckus, or any of the, no doubt, far worse terms that you would fit under that umbrella, anyone who's ever misspoken when talking about black people, like, if we fit all of these together, it seems like we're constructing a definition of racism that is uselessly broad, that could apply to almost anyone. And like you would just be like, at that point, it's basically just a matter of how much of your behavior is in the public eye, right? The more public a person is, the more likely they are to have enough evidence brought to make those claims. But I don't know if you're really like determining anything about anyone's behavior with this type of analysis.
Right. That's what I was asking as well.
Oh, okay. So the reason that I think it has utility, like, I'm not super familiar with critical race theory. I've heard a little bit about it, but it seems to be something that's kind of addressing this. I don't know. Do you know who Michael Moreno is or no? You know who that kid is?
I don't think so.
So, okay, I'm trying not to like soliloquy here, but I'll just give a brief explanation. So there was this kid named Michael Moreno, did formal debate in high school, basically got in trouble during a debate because he cited Ben Shapiro. Basically lost the debate, got mad about it, complained on the internet, said that basically competitive debate is biased against conservatives. Flash forward like a year or two, he ends up going to university. He has like a debate professor who's teaching him how to debate at the college level. And this guy, he had like a whole beef with. I find out about this guy. This guy's whole thing was like critical race theory. So the things that I know about critical race theory are from him. So this guy basically says, this is like kind of who I'm trying to give an impression of in terms of like where my understanding comes from if you have disputes. But the way he described critical race theory, he describes it as though the way we're supposed to understand it is that racism pervades every space of experience. So it pervades how we think about pretty much everything, whether it be science, whether it be philosophy, whether it be math. All those memes about, oh, like, do you think math is racist? Those are supposed to be grounded in the fact that basically black contributions are not significantly considered in like different parts of academia or different institutions.
I think those are great ways of analyzing institutions, but very bad ways of analyzing individuals, especially when you're going to make strong claims, because by those definitions, with those sets of standards, you could have made this stream title about anyone, like anyone, even black activists, even critical race theory professors. Okay. I bet you could speak to most critical race theory professors and they would like acknowledge that, yeah, they would also fit within that bandwidth. Well, if you acknowledge that, then there is no there's no utility in the call out besides a particular dislike for me, right?
It seems as though this conversation would fall into that category as well.
To be clear, I don't think I called you out. If I remember, maybe I'm wrong about this. I don't, JMMA, you might remember. I thought the way the conversation came up was someone was talking in the chat about Professor Flowers and Vaush and said, man, they said Vaush is like racist. That's stupid. I was like, I do think Vaush is racist. And then we started arguing about it. And then we came on to talk to Tom about it because he wanted to see us argue. And I was like, okay.
Right.
Yeah. And then Tom made a stream about it. Like, I'm not married to sitting here.
Wait, hold a second. I don't remember. I don't really remember that.
Okay. How do you remember? Because I might be mistaken. That's how I remember.
Oh my God.
I mean, I don't feel like that. Like I didn't make a stream about it. I was streaming. You guys were arguing in my comments,
but like you made the
and
title.
then I pulled you guys in because you had been arguing about it for over an hour, and I wanted to help you clear it out. Yeah.
So my thing is just like if we're talking about like, you know, originally whether or not you're racist because the Professor Flowers stuff, I can say, yeah, I don't think Vaush is racist because the Professor Flowers stuff. I think he's right about it, but I don't think he's racist. I watched a little bit from the Tom stream. That's what I said already.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Tom streamed it, I want to say like a couple of days ago, and I watched a little bit where she basically said that she's scared of white people and thinks that there should be a separation between black and white.
Did you hear about the genocide? The genocide she picked?
Does she actually believe in genocide?
I didn't go over the genocidal argument until maybe yesterday with Dr. Heem.
Look, if she said that she believes in genociding white people, that's bad. That's horribly fucking racist. Definitely not something I agree with, just to be clear. But I thought all she said was yes, because I feel like GMMA thinks that I'm some like weird, like, I don't know. He thinks like I'm Professor Flowers 2.0 or something.
No, it's just that you
kept bringing up Professor Flowers. I was like, I don't even know who this is really. Like, I've seen like 20 minutes of her. But okay.
Well, you should know. I mean, dude, you should know because like you can't call somebody like racist.
I don't. No, I think you can.
You need to know more about the person before you call them racist.
Flowers is. I think you can call someone.
Yeah, but you need to know the person before you call them racist, though. You can't just say like a.
So okay, do you know who Milo Yiannopoulos is? Do you know him on a personal?
Yes.
Like, that's dumb. Okay, so you know everything about Milo Yiannopoulos. How was he born?
Oh my god.
Okay, obviously that's what I'm saying. Like, obviously, I don't know everything about Vaush. I'm not claiming to.
Yeah, but you should be called racist though, man. If you don't know everything about it, like
wait.
What's your birthday? Go ahead.
Wait, Vaush. Wait, is Vaush racist?
Yeah, I don't think he's racist, but you know, I could, with the right argument, I can be swayed.
Okay.
So, okay,
he's kind of the Vaush expert. I don't know.
So kind of returning to where it was, kind of returning to where I was going.
No, you've been talking over me, dude.
Oh yeah, okay,
bro. I was actually just talking. You weren't even speaking. When are you talking? Okay, whatever. So, anyways, I was gonna say that Vaush. My thing is like, yes, you as an individual are not going to benefit from this analysis of is Vaush racist, but I said that in passing. I do think that analysis is useful in general, and I think it's useful in pinpointing individuals as well, because individuals obviously make up social collectives, and then if we see enough individuals meeting some sort of like social behavior, then we can say, there's a social behavior. What's causing these individuals who make up the social collective to be like this? Like, that's where I think the benefit is. So I think in acknowledging, okay, like someone like Vaush who tries very hard to be anti-racist, someone like Vaush who is like, you know, a leftist and stuff, if he's racist, right, even as much as he might try, then, you know, racism...
He might try. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, like racism is a battle. Like, you know, it's just like kind of something we got to acknowledge. And I said it as well. Wait, hold on one second. You keep saying not to interrupt, and then every time I speak, you interrupt like 40 times.
No, come on, man.
Bro, okay, whatever. Anyways, so I was gonna say that when I think about it, it's like, okay, I feel like the sooner we acknowledge we all have biases, me included. I was talking earlier about how I suffer with like ableism, right? I think the sooner we acknowledge it, the sooner we can recognize the problem and then make like beneficial, easy to do kind of solutions. And easy there being in quotations. Okay, go ahead, JMMA or Vaush.
I mean, Dylan, did Dylan jump on to talk, or is he here just to add his pretty face to the Discord?
By the firefighter.
All I want to say is, you know, I think you should do a little bit more research on somebody, or just watch their streams for you to call them racist. I think it's just really ignorant to accuse somebody of being racist and just have a couple clips.
Hours, what do you think is the requisite? How much hours do I need to watch a Vaush?
You should watch a lot, dude.
Hold on. You should at least subscribe.
Okay, here, hold on.
At least tier 1 subscription. I mean, come on.
2 seconds. If I'm subbed, well, you can see this debate right now. Hold on.
My goodness.
Let me see.
For a sub, I'll admit to be as racist as you want.
Okay, wait, hold on. Wait, 1 second. Am I subbed? Hold on 1 second.
All right.
Okay,
I'm not just looks.
Tier 4, tier
I'm
4
not
sub.
I'm not
Tier
sub.
4
Okay,
sub.
no, okay, you got me. Okay, I'm not sub. But
Yeah.
I'm being serious.
Okay. No, so wait, because I have to go soon. I didn't expect to be on here this long, and I have some work to catch up on. Anyway, I just jumped in here because I got DM'd, so this didn't mean to be like a structured or formal debate or anything. So I guess when it comes to my definition of racist, it has to come to people's behavior and their affect. You can never really know what a person's thinking, but I think that when I think of a person being racist in a meaningful sense, it goes beyond that level of implicit bias that we all have, I think. And it ascends to influencing a person to the extent that they start affecting the world in racist ways, that they espouse racist messages, or they passively support racist movements, or they are at the very least naturally hostile towards anti-racism. There's a lot of stuff like that. And in terms of the actual political behavior I engage in, I think it's pretty ubiquitously anti-racist. So I guess my intention was to provide a little context or explanation to some of these points, but it seems like your method of inferring behavior from action differs from mine. It's more widespread or forgiving than mine. So maybe by your definition, I guess I would be racist if action is thought and the threshold for action is rather low. I can't really argue against that. I just think it's important to take into consideration the possibility that there are reasons to do and say certain things that may not be motivated necessarily by racial animus.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
real quick, Vaush,
ahead.
do you think that anything he said here makes you think that there's a chance that you could have an underlying bias that I'm sure you've heard all of these things a million times or clipped a million times. Do any of these things led you to believe that there could be a pattern in some sort of underlying bias that you were unaware of?
Well, not from this, but I do think there's the possibility of an underlying bias. In fact, I know there's an underlying bias. And I don't think it's possible to be born and raised in a world like this with the biases that we have without it affecting us in some ways. And I think that part of being a good progressive is acknowledging that fact. You know, everyone wants to think that they're above it all, but we're not. We're all born in the same swamp.
We're all people. Yep.
Right. And looking down at that and reflecting on it. And so, for example, how much of my ironic sexism is ironic? Is it 100%? I mean, that seems unlikely, you know. With the behaviors that I engage in both on and off stream, do they contribute to, exacerbate, or at least indicate something underlying worth consideration? And the answer to me for that is, yeah, absolutely. I don't know if any of those biases would rise to a level where I would feel comfortable impugning a person morally for it, but that's ultimately going to come down to thresholds.
Yeah.
And that is...
So
Wait, I got my question.
that's
I never got to ask my question.
Real quick, that
yes,
was
Dylan?
the question I was asking for, and real quick, I do want to give STK a last word, but I want to know, like, if are you, with your implication of Vaush, is this the same as everybody has underlying biases that are there, or is this something that you feel rises to a higher level than most people?
So let me try and give like a numeric expression, and I'm gonna say the other thing I was gonna say. So like, let's say the 0 thing. Let's say no racism, 0. Let's say minimal amount everybody has is 1. I'd say Vaush is like a 3.
Okay.
That's it. Like, I don't think he's like a million, but I think he's a little more racist than like.
How many like? But dude, you have the. I'm sorry.
Hold on,
man,
wait. I was literally about.
Yeah,
to
we
say
don't
that.
want to argue anymore. Vaush has to head out. Dylan.
I mean, I'm
wants to get
okay
his
with
last word in.
arguing if,
Yeah,
like,
we can
everybody
still
wants to.
argue. I'm saying
I'm like a level 6 homophobe.
Yeah, you're a level 8.
True.
But the other thing I was gonna say is, so to be a little clear about the like other shit, because you asked me earlier, and I don't want to make you feel as though I was dodging or like somehow manufactured Tom to bring you in here so I could like harass you or something. So I definitely don't agree with a lot of your takes. Like, I can tell you some of them if you want another time, or here if you want. But namely, one of them is like, you know, your philosophy takes. I think they have some really weird implications. I do think you have like little bigotries and stuff. The only reason I think it's worth noting is I think when I see people in chat say stuff like, "Oh, Vaush is not racist," it's like, no, he is. Like, he's a person. I think we should make that acknowledgement so people can push him in the right direction.
Okay.
Yes.
In a practical sense, there's obviously utility in distinguishing between people who possess the universal latent racism and people who are racist in the sense that it actually meaningfully affects the world, right? I mean, because you can't, because otherwise we cheapen the term a bit, right? I mean, Ben Shapiro is racist. He's not just latently racist in some neutral, we were all born in the muck sort of way.
He's definitely a Super Saiyan racist. I agree.
Right? Yeah, he's Super Saiyan racist, right? So I think it's important to reserve these criticisms, at least when impugning people, in ways that properly distinguish who we should be mad at and which behaviors we should focus on correcting first.
Yeah, and I said this stuff in the chat, but unfortunately you can only say so much over like 150 characters, I think it is, each time. Yes. But I already said this stuff in the chat if anyone wants to go look. And that's why I asked JMMA earlier, like, oh, let's just talk over Discord so we can communicate a little bit better so I can explain my actual position. The other thing I was going to say is, don't think I'm some like rampant Vaush hater. Like, I'm not a fan of you, but like, I don't think you're the worst person in the world. I just think you're like a little like edgy and stuff, to be honest.
You don't think the worst, calling someone the worst person was racist? You don't think racist could be one of the worst people in the world?
Like
Come on, man.
I'm gonna finish. Anyways, like I said, so
racists are nice. Don't forget.
Could you mute him? Oh my god, he keeps interrupting.
You've interrupted many times. Go ahead and finish, and then
I'm saying like he keeps interrupting me, and you say I get the chance to speak. So whatever. Anyways, I was gonna say that. Yeah, true. Yeah, my thing is just like you get a lot of unnecessary criticism, but I do think there are some times where you don't get the necessary criticism. So like I think on the racism thing, that's like an understated problem that you might have. It's not like terribly understated, but it is something worth noting. People like Doomer Politics are fucking losers and cringe. I think people like that are just clout fiends and are fucking liars who will just say weird shit about you. But that's not really who I'm sitting here trying to like mimic or anything. I do think that like the horse stuff, that's just a good meme. You should watch the video. And
damn right.
It's a good, no, I'm being so serious, dude. Some guy on Twitter made a good ass meme. He's
I see all the content made about me. It is indeed a good meme.
You made a YouTube video about it.
You might not have seen the video that I'm talking about specifically because it's from Twitter, but you should watch it because I think it's well edited. The thing I'm going to say is, yeah, like the horse stuff, I think that's just joshing you. I think it's just like a little thing. Man. I think that
made a video about it.
Memes, I don't think you're like a pedophile or anything. I'm trying not to like make it sound like I'm saying that sarcastically. I don't think you're
if you're gonna go through all of my alleged controversies, then we're probably gonna be here for another 40 minutes.
No. I know like 3 of them. I know 3 of them. So like the bestiality stuff, like I'm assuming you're talking about like anime or something. The pedophilia stuff, I don't think you are. I think you have a weird philosophy take, which is like your way of
no. I don't
think you're a murderer. I don't think you're a racist.
I don't think you're a homicide.
Okay.
I just want to be clear. I think that. Can you give me?
You are backpedaling like crazy right now.
I'm not.
I remember the comments where you're saying you said he advocates for CP.
Maybe a murderer. I think that's fair.
You said he advocates for CP. You said
okay. So hold on. Wait. We only one controversy at a time. We leave the others.
That's what I'm talking about, though.
Okay.
That's literally what I'm talking about.
All right. I love you all. I love you all very much, Dylan.
You gotta go.
Dylan, I'll be seeing you in Nashville, won't I?
Yes, but also we've been trying to respect.
Oh, yeah, I know. I have the info.
I have my question. I've been waiting for like an hour to just ask one question.
Hit it up.
Okay, Vaush, have you ever yelled the N-word at a black person?
Not yet.
Yeah, the N-word to black person.
Yeah, not yet.
Give it a minute. We're ready for a new controversy.
Well, then I give up. He's clean.
Look, Vaush, and I'll say this as well. I'll say one more thing in your favor, bro. Because I feel like we got off on the wrong foot a little bit, but I'm gonna just say this. I think you were at least less racist than Destiny. I will say that in your defense.
Okay.
You're better than Destiny. Yeah. 100%.
All right. Thanks, Vaush. I appreciate you jumping on, man.
All of you take care. JMMA, have a good one as well. Because I didn't get to talk to you directly because we were we were sitting at the same side of the table, so we weren't looking at each other's eyes. Have a good time.
Nice meeting you.
Juices.
You too, man.
Later.
All right. Now that all the pedophiles are gone, so what's up,
brother.
Jay?